Welcome to Fast Pace, the new growth, leadership and management podcast featuring Josh Phegan and Dean Mackie. We wanted to peel back the layers on what happens in the world of fast-paced real estate agencies, from new leadership models to the management challenges we all face each day. This is about a new era in the estate agency sector. Rapid changes to business models, service lines, remuneration and growth present the greatest opportunities that we've ever seen. Sit back, get inspired, grow your skills and reimagine what's possible with Fast Pace. Every Friday, wherever you get your podcasts, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts and Josh Phegan Digital.
Dean, there's nothing worse than being in a meeting that literally saps out all of your time and energy. Nothing to save the costs inside of the business to actually hold that meeting. There's also nothing quite like being in a meeting where you just feel energized and pumped and you really nail the objectives. Dean, we're all going to be in lots of meetings in our lives, sales meetings, property management meetings, management meetings, one-on-ones, types of conversations we have with people. What have you found that really works to make sure that you have a great meeting?
Thanks, Josh. I sort of find that most of my life is in meetings, so there are different meetings for different things, right? Meetings with yourself are pretty important, I guess. But, look, I'd say there's a few things I've learned over the years on how to make a meeting really effective. And I think the first part is actually being planned, having some planning around what it is you want to achieve. So getting the right agenda in place. A lot of people just roll into a meeting and haven't really thought about the agenda and therefore it can sort of run in all different places and it can be really inefficient and ineffective and all that stuff. So really ask yourself, what's the meeting's purpose? What are you trying to get out of that and what's the outcome, and making sure you're clear on that and then putting an agenda in place so then people know specifically if they've got to do something for the agenda, what that agenda looks like and what their part will be. So first and foremost, get an agenda and understand the purpose. The second thing is I've often found that, I look around a room sometimes and I actually wonder why are all these certain people in the room? Because getting clear on who are the right people in the room, who are the actual stakeholders and who actually needs to contribute to this meeting is actually the next most important point, because, you don't want to sort of sidetrack people if they don't need to be in there and then they just, sitting there doing something else or their mind somewhere else because it's not relevant to them. So so making sure you're clear on the outcome, the agenda and the right people in a room as I think is a really, really good start. So
did meetings get more complicated when we went hybrid, in-person, all digital? Did that also change it as well about the way that you would work inside of that meeting?
Yeah, I think so. I think if you have a whole combination of meetings, not everyone's in the room, right? So how do you engage people and make sure you got the right technology in place? Because that can stuff up a meeting too, right? If you're using the wrong platform. Also making sure you got the right visuals to be able to handle those mediums, Josh, is really important too. Because otherwise, you want some people to be able to see stuff and other people haven't. So yeah, understanding how to use the technology in that circumstance, I think, is quite crucial. The other thing is, I'd say, mate, meetings often, if people turn up late, getting them started on time and ending on time is a good way to respect people's time. And also people know that they can come in. If it's a punchy 15-minute meeting and we've got to focus, then you've got to focus. Or if it's depends on all that. And making sure you keep it on track, I think is really important.
What I love here too is about actually understanding all the contribution. So in this part, Dean, it's going to be an information download. I'm going to tell you about 3 things you need to know right now. This part here is a vote. Do you think we should have our party at Icebergs for our Christmas party this year, like you guys did? Should we? And this one might be discussion. Hey guys, where do you think we should hold the Christmas party? Or this particular item over here, it might actually just be
requires a decision. I think that's the other thing is understanding what's going on in that meeting. So sometimes people think that they've got to contribute to every part of it, where it could be just I just need to inform you of this. Or actually I need a decision on this, right? So in our business, we run a 90-day sort of sprint cycle. And we actually have our cross-functional team come in every Wednesday, and we run a forum that they're allowed to, we put an agenda together, and let's say I put something on the agenda, I'll identify who in fact I need to have at that meeting. I'll be the project lead, but only for 20 minutes. And I'm just going to brief you on what we actually require to have happen. We don't need to solve world peace today, but we just want to get this thing put into the process. And then we need someone else then to brief it, action it, follow it up, do whatever. And that might happen over the next sort of heavy lifting on the outcome of that might happen over the next 5 or 6 weeks. But then the people who are actually maybe involved in the execution of that may not have needed to be involved in the initial briefing stage. So who are the stakeholders? Who's going to drive it through, and what's got to happen to make it happen? So So yeah, being clear about informing or decision. See, I might not be involved in that until at a later stage when a decision has to get made. So that the team might go away and work on something and then go, right, we need Dean back because we want him to make this decision. So those getting clear on all that stuff is really important. I think the other thing we forget about is making our meetings safe for people to actually contribute. Like how do you create an environment where people feel safe to collaborate, safe to put their input in, and without feeling though they're going to be judged or whatever. Because I've seen some meetings go pretty wrong where people tee off on each other unnecessarily because it's not a safe environment, and then you end up in a situation where people don't really share their true self or their truth, and that then can actually make the meetings not worthwhile, and in fact can sabotage the whole process.
So a couple of things that we found have been really useful inside of meetings. Make sure people got the agenda well prior. Make sure people actually do the work. So I do a lot of work before I'll even walk into a meeting to make sure I've got everything that I need, or that I've got specific viewpoints on things. I want to make sure that I've actually spoken to some people about that prior to getting to the meeting so that I'm actually clear about that I'm on the right page or not. And then also too, sometimes we use a tool. We do this particularly for our 2-dayer that we do for our total planning for the business. And we actually, we go through some tools like, dangerous opportunities and strengths in the business, but we actually just pre-survey our team to actually fill out those things before we even get there. So then when we're going to dangerous opportunities and strengths, we can see that we're all on the same page or that we've got some misalignment quite quickly. So we can actually talk and have proper conversations about that. So it is that safe space that you're talking about, but it allows us not to sit there and not have anyone doing any contribution because I've already thought about some of those things before we got to that meeting. So then there's a really good chance to actually make that operate at speed. The other thing I really love, make sure that literally when you enter into a meeting, how do you want people to leave when do they want to feeling like they're energized, depressed?
I think it's important. It's you go into these things thinking, well, what do you want people to do or think, or how you want to behave post-meeting, right? Because often some of those meetings require change. Often, you're trying to drive something. So I think, making sure you're clear on that. And then also making sure when everybody leaves that meeting, everyone understands what's required of them next. So assigning the tasks and the action sheets and making sure that everyone goes, okay, I know my part and this is when I've got to be able to circle back to the group and make sure that everything's on time. So for me, and we also, Josh, find that sometimes out of the back of that, if it's a decent project that comes off the back of a meeting, to save meeting time, we can use tools like Monday where everybody can see what's happening. So you can actually then not necessarily need to meet about all the different action steps because you can actually see that a certain person has been assigned a certain action and actually moved it along, and you don't need to meet to talk about that, right?
Yeah.
So I think, if meetings are great and having great meetings is important, but finding out ways that you can keep things moving at speed and not just having a lot of people in a meeting that's not necessarily required, and having the wrong people in there who may be just there as passengers. I think they're just little things that over the years I've learnt can sabotage a great meeting.
I like to finish on this. The sales meeting is not a depression session, right? So I always say to people, hey, here's a really nice little one that I built for someone the other day. Sales meeting, ideally is 32 minutes in this particular business. Values for 1 minute. Good news items for 2 minutes. Need to know for 3 minutes. New listings this week for 5 minutes. Forthcoming auctions for 5 minutes. Sales this week, and are there any leftover buys for 5 minutes. Prospecting this week for 3 minutes. Appointment number review for 3 minutes, and deal support for 5 minutes. And so ultimately that's how you run a 32-minute meeting, but ultimately you've got to be pre-prepared before you get there to go and make that happen. Try it out. See what actually happens when you give people a really good agenda and actually teach them how to use each other's time to make sure that when you leave the meeting, you feel more confident and more motivated to go and do the work.